This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Ben Settle, super practical.
I'm not telling people to have a mistress. I'm teaching you, learn the lesson from the people who have a mistress, because there's many business lessons that apply.
Pious.
There's a part in the book of Revelation where Jesus says, I want you either hot or cold. I'm spewing lukewarm churches out. And I think it's a good way to look at your list.
Romantic to his very core.
Once in a while, I'll give my girl a present, like a Snickers bar or something.
And totes tender.
If someone asks you to walk on eggshells, smash the eggshells and let the chips fall wherever they may.
Adored by feminists everywhere.
It takes a strong woman to admit when she's wrong.
Not a judgmental bone in his entire body.
I look at all the free information people give just on Facebook and I go, what a bunch of time hose.
Has a PhD in armchair philosophy.
In the land of dumbasses, the smartass is king.
You'll never meet a more sensitive guy.
If you really care about people, you shame the hell out of them. This is Ben Settle, the bensettle.com podcast with my cohort, Jonathan Rivera, producer Jonathan, I should say. Did you know, Jonathan, now let me ask you a question. Now, this is on my mind. I meant to bring this up before, but are you caught up on the Enoch Wars saga, or did you kind of stop after the second one? Have you read them all?
I think the last one I read was the vampire one. I can't remember. The guy was on the cover.
Okay, that's okay. You did not read the werewolf one.
No, I didn't.
You actually are in that book.
Oh, no.
You are. I slightly disguised your name by calling you producer Johnny, but you are in the book. I'm just letting you know you are in book 5.
This guy. Look, ladies and gentlemen, look at how he markets his book to even the people that don't want to read the shit. Look at this guy. Now I have to read it.
You are entrenched in book 5. I'm not going to say whether you die or not. I'm not going to give away that reveal, but you are a character in the book. And I don't know why it's taken me so long to tell you this, because that thing's been published since like August. So I mean, but there it is. So that gave you something to think about and something to brag about if you want. You also make an appearance in book 7. So, but I'm not trying to push books on you. Okay. I'm just letting you know. Okay. I'm giving you the opportunity to buy. That's all I'm doing.
What's the most powerful word in marketing? You. I'm like, oh shit.
It's you. Exactly. I mean, that's all I'm doing is giving you I'm not hyping it up. I didn't even tell you where you can buy it. Like on Amazon, I would tell you to go to. In fact, if I was going to tell you where to buy it, I'd say just go to EnochWars.com. But I'm not going to.
You're not going to do that.
I'm not going to give the URL. All right, I'm not going to do it because I'm not trying to push it on you. I'm just letting you know there's something there that you might find interesting, and it's very and it's about you. So if that wasn't a hit, if that wasn't an obvious sales lesson, I don't know what is. So we're gonna continue from last week's Psycho Traits podcast episode, where I'm talking about the mental side of things, the inner game, as some people call it. I hate the word mindset only because the coaching industry has completely bastardized it in every possible way. And now it's almost like embarrassing to use the word with their enlightened mindsets and their enlightened spiritual, whatever, badass, whatever, boss ho, or whatever they're calling them. So I don't even know what they call them. Boss ho, whatever they're doing. They've completely, Jonathan, did you see that email I wrote recently about like some of the things they do in the coaching industry?
Yeah.
Like they masturbate and they think of money when they orgasm.
Oh my goodness.
they don't take clients on during a dark moon. They won't start any business until Mercury retrograde is over, whatever the hell that is. It's all this stuff, and these are the people that have just completely screwed the word mindset. Like they make a mockery of it with all this horse shit, and so it is. But these are cycles. These are different. Okay, this is different. This is stuff that these are all very simple things. We talked about the internal thermostat everyone has last week. Nothing new under the sun about that, but it's like everyone has a specific place where they're a comfort zone. And your thermostat is set at a certain amount of money every year, lifestyle, whatever. If you go under that, you'll do whatever it takes. No one has to tell you anything to get back to where you're comfortable. If you get too above that, you'll be uncomfortable and you'll probably lose any money you make. Like, people who win the lottery all of a sudden because they can't handle $5 million in one shot, they end up blowing it all. They just subconsciously end up getting rid of it because they're just not comfortable with it. And so it is. And we talked about attitude and the Acres of Diamonds story and people who are afraid of failure. And the only way you can fail is to do nothing. That's the only way you're a failure. If you do something, you're not a failure because you're working toward your whatever you're trying to do. And if it doesn't work, it's just a result. It's not a failure. So there you go. So that was last week. This week, we're going to pick up with some other psycho traits you're going to need if you're going to buy any of my products, at least. You're going to need to be very comfortable with these things because you're not going to ever do anything if you don't. You're just going to end up buying email players and let them pile up for 10 months and never do anything. And then send me an email saying, oh, they're piling up. I can't keep up with it. And because they're not implementing. That's the problem. They're not. It's nothing to do with them piling up. It's just that they're not implementing anything. If you're implementing and you're making money off it, it's not like you have too much information. You want more. That's just the way it works. If you have your mind on straight. If your thermostat's all screwed, then you're going to make up excuses of why you're not mailing daily and why this and why that. That's how it goes. So to start with this one, here's something that, Jonathan, a lot of people they don't want to do what I'm about to say. They don't think they can do it. They think that they're too much of a snowflake or a mush cookie and all that. And maybe they are. But this will get them out of that if they just learn this one thing. And that is to embrace criticism, not avoid it, not try to play it off, not try to do everything to appease everybody. No, it's to actually seek out critics. Like the more critics you have, probably the better you're doing. One of the best teachers of this is the great Dan Kennedy. And he likes telling a story about Dr. Atkins. Now, everyone probably knows what the Atkins diet is. I'm sure that all the personal trainers who listen to this, who are always mindlessly nattering on about macros and all this crap, they probably, oh, that's just crap. Okay. Whatever people want to think. I don't really care. I have no dog in the Atkins fight. But according to Dan Kennedy, who, I guess knew the late Dr. Atkins or something, or he had some kind of association, I think. He said for years, Dr. Atkins was ridiculed, vilified, mocked, mercilessly mocked in the media, by the news people, by other doctors, by health professionals, nutritionists, all hated this guy and what he stood for. Dan Kennedy said even Larry King, who's like the most softball interviewer of all, and you can hear this story in his I talked about it on the New Year's podcast, $10 million ideas or $10 million marketing strategies, I think it's called, or $10 million marketing secrets, whatever it is. He talks about this in great detail. And it's a brilliant, brilliant story. He said that people even Larry King, who if Larry King was to interview Hitler, he would just say, well, what's your favorite color? He's just the easiest softball interviewer of them all. Even he used to ridicule Dr. Atkins and put him on the hot seat. And yet Dr. Atkins had 100,000% immunity to criticism. It just didn't faze him at all. He kept going. And now, it's like $100 million business. Now, again, I'm not for Atkins or against it. Okay. So anyone who's dumb enough not to read between the lines, listen to this, or listen between the lines, if that makes any sense. It's not about that. It's not about what he taught. It's about his immunity to criticism. And this is a psycho trait that people who become very successful have. They are able to embrace criticism and to actually seek it out and to even use it, like I'd like to do, to use it to make more sales with. When you get comfortable with it, you can now take it and use it in your emails and your copy and your marketing or your videos, whatever you market with, your podcast, and you can take people's criticism and actually use it to make sales with. It's a very easy thing to do. I do it routinely. Jonathan does it. It's nothing big deal, but you have to be comfortable with it first. You have to be comfortable with the criticism when someone throws it at you. So again, this is something people are deathly scared of. I don't know why. I don't know why they care what anyone else thinks about them, but they do. Apparently, if you were to ask people who understand personality typing, like last week I mentioned Stephanie Royal, she'll tell you that people who are extroverted tend to really care what people think. People who are introverted like me tend to not care what people think. In fact, I hope people stay away from me. And I'll do more of whatever it is that's keeping them away to keep them away more. Which just perfectly dovetails into the next one, Jonathan, now that I think about it. And that is understanding different personality types. This is very new to me, so I'm not going to teach it in depth because I'm still learning this myself. But it does change the way you deal with people, and it changes the way that you will deal with your own inner angst and mindset problems and all that stuff. The things that you need to get on straight. So, for example, people who like to who are big on feelings and they're feelers. Right. And I don't mean this in like a Weinstein way. I'm just talking about kind of. I'm not talking about this in the Kevin Spacey way. Okay. I'm talking about people who are they tend to be they feel through things. They feel through things. They're just that very touchy feely. That's how they are, as opposed to thinkers. I would be in the thinking camp. Doesn't mean that we're sociopaths if we're thinkers. It just means, or we don't have emotions. It just means we think through things. Well, people who feel through things tend to project. So they get discouraged. So when they see something like when I teach email players stuff to them, they get discouraged because they think they're not supposed to be emailing so much because they don't like to get a lot of email. And that's how they feel about it. So they project their biases onto their market. That's an example of what I'm talking about, is understanding where you fit into this thing. If you're an introvert, chances are you admire or you think you have to be extrovert, not necessarily admire them, but you think that you have to be, and you have to do all this extroverted stuff. You don't. And people who are very extroverted and their ease, as people will call them, they tend to really care too much what people think. It's all about like, they're easily rejected. I'm sure you know people like this, Jonathan. I know several people like this. This is just understanding these sort of things. And this goes beyond Myers-Briggs, by the way. I'm keeping it very simple. I'm just saying, understand how you process things and how you process rejection and all this, and you'll have a much better understanding of it. And you'll be able to deal with things when they don't go right. You'll be able to deal with other people better. It's just something part of the inner game that I don't hear talked about a lot, but there it is. And so I am talking about it, Jonathan. I have no problem talking about it, even though I don't really know what I'm talking about. I still talk about it because the only wrong thing I could do is not talk about it.
That's right.
By my own definition. But that's an and then there's other things too, and I'm not going to get into it. Like there's like people who tend to be thinkers. We have analysis paralysis because we're looking at 15 different possible outcomes to a problem and solution and this and that. And we just, we can fall into that trap. Absolutely. So that's another thing to think about. And that would be, that's an inner problem. That's something that guys like me have to deal with. And if we don't, we're going to sit there and buy a bunch of products and learn a bunch of training and never really implement it because, we're analysis paralysis. Is this ad really good enough to run? Oh, no. Instead of just running the stupid thing and seeing what happens, we got to sit there and pore over it and analyze it to death. Or with emails, it's really bad because email should be fast. You just write it, get it out there, and move on with your day. But if you're a thinker type, you might be the one who sits there for 3 hours obsessing over the last sentence of an email, which is just it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
So next one, Jonathan, we have 2 more to go. We have 2 more psycho traits to go. And then I'm done. Then I'm done talking about this. And next week, we're going to go into something completely different. The next one is kind of, it's one of these things that's so basic and it's so simple that Dan Kennedy wrote a whole book about it once. And yet it's so basic and simple, everybody does it, or everybody knows it, but nobody does it. And that is the power of taking action. And I'm going to actually take it a step further. Everybody knows, you take action. Nothing gets done if you don't take action. This is common sense, right? This people just taking action will solve like 99% of their problems. Take some kind of action. And I'm gonna add another layer to this. I'm gonna say it's not just action, but it's willpower. And people like to poo-poo this, John. You ever notice this? That everybody says willpower is the dumbest thing to rely on. You shouldn't rely on willpower because you're just going to fail and all this stuff, whether it be with diets or exercise or whatever, business, willpower. Or writing your daily email takes willpower. Okay, there's no magic around it. Okay, there's no, you actually have to sit there and write. And this isn't just daily emails. This is doing anything. You have to take an action. If you don't take an action, nothing happens and everything dies and you're done. So you got to take an action. But it comes down to willpower and doing the things you have to do, but you really don't want to do. There's this guy, F.J. Shark. He wrote one of the best books I've ever read called How to Be the Jerk Women Love. You'd want to read that one, Jonathan. Great book. Great book for marketers, too, I'll add. And he had this blog up. It's no longer up anymore, but luckily I printed it out at the time and everything, where he talked about the power of willpower, willpower. It's like the one thing that separates everybody. And it's a muscle. You can build it. It's not something that has to be this excruciating thing. It's like going to the gym. You work it out. The more you use your willpower, the more you work it out, and the more successful you're going to be. And he said something. I think we're making this. I think if we haven't already done it, it's going to be an email player's role. So I'll just give a little bit of foreshadowing here. And that is the best time to do something. The most important time to do something is when you don't want to do it. Like when you just don't want to do it, that is the best time to actually force yourself to go do it. And you'd be surprised at the breakthroughs you'll have and the gains you'll have and how many benefits come from that. It's easy to do it when you want to do something. Anybody can do that when they're excited. What's the definition of character, Jonathan? Isn't it? Let me see if I get this right. It's following through on a decision long after the excitement of the moment passed when you made that decision, and that's where willpower comes in. Next week we're going to get into some Q&As, and there's some questions about finding a mission and how do I know what do I do if I slip and I don't follow my mission every day? And they're missing the entire point. Like that, this dovetails with that. So anyone who listens next week, keep that in mind. But it's all about taking action and having the willpower to take the action, even when you don't want to take especially when you don't want to take the action. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's what it took me like 10 minutes to say when I could have just said it in one sentence. Whatever. I'm finally the one last, this is, this concept is time is passing anyway. And understanding this concept can change everyone like right away. So there's this guy in prison, Jonathan, named Kevin Trudeau. At least I think he's still in prison. I can't remember. But, most people know who he is. He was gotten a lot of trouble for marketing, false marketing claims and all this and, whatever. That's a whole other thing. But I remember once hearing him give this talk about, and because he used to be in the MLM I first got into. He was like the main distributor guy. So he did really good talks, actually, like really good motivational. He was a really good motivational speaker. He should have just kept doing that. He would have stayed out of prison and probably made a lot of money. But he had this story about time is passing anyway, and realizing that time is passing, no matter what you do or don't do, time is still passing. So he was talking about this person he knew who wanted to get their master's degree. And the problem is that this person would have had to go to night school for 5 years to get their master's degree. And he was like, oh man, it's 5 years and I have to go to night school. And Kevin's like, well, time's passing anyway. Like 5 years from now, you can have your master's degree if that's what's important to you, or you could be sitting here talking to me, complaining how you didn't get your master's degree. That time is going to pass regardless of what you do. And once that time has passed, you cannot get it back. It's not like fiat money that that you just print up. I mean, this time is there is no more. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so that was this whole point. And so people if you're going to do my stuff, if you're going to do email players, if you're going to do anything I teach at least, you're going to have to do it every day. And it doesn't have to be this long 10-hour day. In fact, it should be a 10-minute day, 10-minute work day is what I teach. But that time is passing. So, if I say write an email every day designed to sell your product and you don't do it one day, well, realize you just lost that day. That time is passing, whether you write the email or not. You can either be closer to your goals or as far away as you are now from your goals. It's totally up to you. But that time is passing. So you might as well spend it doing the things you want to do to get the things you want. The way I look at it. And a lot of people simply don't do it. They sit there and they procrastinate because of fear of failure, like we talked about, or because they have the wrong attitude, or because their thermostat is a little making them uncomfortable. It'll make them way too uncomfortable if they start making too much money right away because they're using my methods and all that. Or they're afraid of criticism, whatever it is, that time is passing and they've done nothing with it. And then what happens is they go into mode where they start feeling regret and all this instead of just getting on the horse and starting to do stuff right away. So that's an important cycle trait. I think they're all important, and that's it. All right, those are the cycles. There's many, many more actually, but those are the ones we're going to talk about. I highly recommend you listen to this episode and last week's episode more than once to ingrain these even more into your mind and to start taking action and applying this stuff, changing your attitude if it needs changing. And next time we're going to do a Q&A, Jonathan. Yeah. I haven't done a Q&A. I haven't done one in a long time, have I? Q&A.
Let's see.
But I reached into my righteous sack and mail sack and grabbed some questions.
Yeah.
Grabbed some and
grabbed a handful.
Grabbed a handful, not in the Kevin Spacey way, but, just, for people who think that way. But there we go. So that's next week, and we'll talk to you then.
Yes, sir. Another bensettle.com podcast is in the can. We'll be back in your earbuds next time.
You've been listening to the bensettle.com podcast. To download yourself a free issue of Ben's prestigious $97 per month email players newsletter, which is going to show you 24 ways to write emails people eagerly read, click, and buy from, head on over to www.bensettle.com. Well, off you go. You know it makes sense.
This is the podcastfactory.com.